At one point, some people are like, what's going on with Antarctica? Have you heard this? Where they sent Admiral Byrd up?
Antarctica, just the name conjures images of vast, empty ice, blinding white stretching to the horizon. It's the coldest, driest, windiest continent on Earth, a place almost alien in its extremes. But lately, whispers and online chatter, often amplified by massive platforms like the Joe Rogan Experience, hint at something more.
And according to his journal that they found much later, he basically met with UFOs, Nazi UFOs.
What?
Talk of a terrifying truth being revealed about this frozen landmass piques curiosity. What secrets could possibly be buried under miles of ice? Is there something down there we aren't being told? Let's cut through the noise and explore what's really going on at the bottom of the world. So why Antarctica? Why does this remote, largely uninhabited continent pop up so frequently in discussions that veer into the mysterious, the unexplained, or even the conspiratorial conversations often featured on Joe Rogan's podcast? It boils down to a few key things. Firstly, there's the simple power of the unknown. Antarctica is huge, bigger than the United States and Mexico combined, and most of it is covered by an ice sheet averaging over a mile thick. What could be under all that ice? Human nature abhors a vacuum, especially one that vast and inaccessible. Our imagination rushes in to fill the gaps. This naturally makes it fertile ground for fringe theories. For decades, stories have circulated, tales of hidden Nazi bases left over from World War II, fueled by a real German expedition in 1938, though its aims were far more mundane. Crashed UFOs preserved in the ice, entrances to a hollow Earth, or even remnants of technologies far beyond our own. These ideas, while lacking credible evidence, are undeniably captivating. They tap into our fascination with lost worlds, government secrets, and the possibility that history isn't quite what we've been taught. Platforms like the JRE thrive on exploring these kinds of questions. Rogan himself often expresses a fascination with the edges of known science, with historical anomalies, and with guests who challenge conventional narratives. Whether discussing ancient civilizations, potential cover-ups, or strange phenomena, Antarctica inevitably enters the conversation as the ultimate blank spot on the map, a place where almost anything could theoretically be hidden. It's less about Rogan making a specific, singular announcement and more about his show being a space where these long-standing Antarctic mysteries get aired, discussed, and amplified to millions, often blending speculative ideas with grains of actual, fascinating scientific reality. The continent becomes a sort of symbolic final frontier for terrestrial mysteries in these discussions. But before diving into the really out-there ideas sometimes floated, what is the actual history that fuels some of this speculation? Could there be a kernel of truth to the idea of something ancient hidden there? One of the most persistent and intriguing ideas swirling around Antarctica is the notion of a lost civilization, perhaps even Atlantis itself, buried beneath the ice. Proponents sometimes point to things like the Piri Reis map, a 16th century map that some interpret as showing Antarctica's coastline before it was covered in ice. It sounds incredible, right? A map showing something supposedly not discovered until centuries later? Well, let's unpack that. While the Piri Reis map is genuinely fascinating, most historians and cartographers agree it likely depicts the coast of South America, perhaps distorted or based on earlier source maps, not a pre-ice Antarctica. The idea that it accurately maps a continent hidden under miles of ice centuries before its discovery requires a huge leap of faith, ignoring more plausible explanations. However, there is a grain of scientific truth that fuels this speculation. Antarctica wasn't always frozen. Go back tens of millions of years and the continent was located further north, enjoyed a temperate climate, and was covered in forests. Fossil evidence confirms this. Fossilized leaves, wood, pollen, even remains of dinosaurs and early mammals have been found. So yes, Antarctica did have a different past. But here's the crucial distinction: this warm period was long before modern humans, let alone advanced civilizations capable of building pyramids or complex structures, ever existed. We're talking about the Eocene epoch, roughly 56 to 34 million years ago. Homo sapiens didn't emerge until much, much later, maybe 300,000 years ago in Africa. By the time humans were developing anything resembling civilization, Antarctica was already well on its way to becoming the icebound continent we know today, thanks to continental drift carrying it south and changes in global climate patterns. So, while the idea of finding ancient ruins under the ice is captivating, there's simply no geological or archaeological evidence to support it. What scientists are finding beneath the ice, however, is arguably just as fascinating, hinting at different kinds of lost worlds. They're looking for ancient microbes that might have survived in subglacial lakes, clues to past climates locked in ice cores, and a deeper understanding of our planet's geological history. Not stone pyramids. The lost civilization narrative makes for a great story, but the reality of Antarctica's deep past is rooted in geology and paleontology, not forgotten architects. While ancient pyramids under the ice remain firmly in the realm of fiction, scientists are finding incredible, almost unbelievable things hidden beneath the surface. What have they actually discovered down there? Okay, so forget lost cities for a moment. What is genuinely scientifically mind-blowing and hidden beneath Antarctica's ice? The answer lies in a vast, dark, cold world that scientists are only just beginning to probe: the subglacial environment. Using ice-penetrating radar, seismic surveys, and sophisticated drilling techniques, researchers have unveiled a landscape completely hidden from view. Perhaps the most famous discovery is Lake Vostok. Imagine a lake roughly the size of Lake Ontario buried under more than 2 miles, nearly 4 kilometers, of solid ice. It's one of the largest lakes on Earth, and its waters haven't been exposed to the atmosphere for potentially millions of years. Think about that. An entire ecosystem potentially teeming with unique microbial life, completely isolated from the rest of the planet for geological timescales. Drilling down near Vostok, a careful process to avoid contaminating the pristine lake, has yielded tantalizing hints of microbial DNA, suggesting life can exist in these extreme conditions, possibly thriving on chemical energy rather than sunlight. And Vostok isn't alone. Scientists have now identified over 400 subglacial lakes beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, ranging from small ponds to vast bodies of water, some interconnected by hidden rivers and streams flowing at the base of the ice. It's a whole hidden hydrosphere. Studying these lakes could tell us about the limits of life on Earth, potentially providing analogues for icy moons like Europa or Enceladus in our solar system. What forms of life have evolved in total darkness, under immense pressure, cut off for eons? It's one of the biggest questions in polar science. But it's not just lakes. Radar surveys have also revealed entire mountain ranges buried beneath the ice. The Gamburtsev subglacial mountains, located near the center of East Antarctica, are comparable in scale to the European Alps, peaks reaching up to 8,000 feet, 2,400 meters, yet they are completely entombed under thousands of feet of ice. Discovering these mountains in the 1950s was a shock. Their existence challenges our understanding of tectonics and how continents form. Why are such young-looking mountains located in the middle of an ancient continental craton? How did they get there before the ice sheet formed over them? These discoveries show us that even the bedrock landscape beneath the ice holds profound geological mysteries. The real unknown Antarctica isn't about pyramids, it's about these hidden lakes, rivers, and mountains, a genuine frontier of exploration. Discovering hidden lakes and mountains is mind-blowing, but there's another aspect of Antarctica, something unfolding right now that carries a far more immediate and genuinely terrifying weight for all of us. While hidden lakes and buried mountains capture the imagination, the most scientifically sound, genuinely terrifying truth about Antarctica right now relates directly to us and the future of our planet: climate change. This isn't speculation, it's observed reality backed by overwhelming scientific consensus. The Antarctic ice sheet holds about 90% of the world's ice and around 70% of its fresh water. If even a significant fraction of it melts, the consequences for global sea levels would be catastrophic, and parts of it are melting at accelerating rates. The West Antarctic ice sheet in particular is causing major concern. Glaciers like Pine Island and Thwaites are losing ice incredibly fast. Thwaites Glacier is often called the Doomsday Glacier for a chilling reason. It's enormous, roughly the size of Florida or Great Britain. Its grounding line, where the ice lifts off the bedrock and starts floating, is retreating rapidly, and much of its base sits on bedrock that slopes downward inland below sea level. This makes it potentially unstable. If warmer ocean waters continue to eat away at its underside, it could trigger a runaway collapse that might be impossible to stop, eventually contributing several feet to global sea level rise all on its own. Furthermore, Thwaites acts like a cork, holding back even more ice further inland. Its collapse could destabilize a much larger portion of the West Antarctic ice sheet. We've already seen dramatic events. Remember the Larsen B ice shelf? In 2002, a section larger than the state of Rhode Island disintegrated in just over a month, a shocking collapse attributed to warmer air and surface meltwater wedging open crevasses. While the collapse of floating ice shelves doesn't directly raise sea levels, like ice cubes melting in a glass, they act as buttresses, slowing down the flow of glaciers from the land into the sea. When they disappear, those glaciers accelerate, contributing more ice and thus more water to the oceans. The potential sea level rise from Antarctic melt is measured not in inches, but in feet or even tens of feet over the coming centuries if warming continues unchecked. Imagine coastal cities around the world, New York, Miami, London, Shanghai, Mumbai, Sydney, facing permanent inundation. This isn't a far-off sci-fi scenario, it's a projection based on current trends and the physics of ice. The sheer scale of Antarctica means even small percentage changes in its ice volume have enormous global repercussions. That potential future driven by our own actions is arguably the most terrifying truth Antarctica holds. The changing climate isn't just a scientific concern, it potentially shifts the strategic importance of this frozen continent. What exactly is the human footprint down there, and could old rivalries reignite on the ice? Amidst the vast wilderness and the looming climate threat, Antarctica isn't entirely devoid of human activity. For decades, it's been a unique stage for international cooperation, but also quiet geopolitical maneuvering. The cornerstone of this is the Antarctic Treaty System, which came into force in 1961. Its main goals to ensure Antarctica is used exclusively for peaceful purposes, military activity is banned, to promote international scientific cooperation, and to set aside disputes over territorial sovereignty. Currently, over 50 nations are party to the treaty. This treaty has been remarkably successful, transforming a potential Cold War hotspot into a continent dedicated primarily to science. Dozens of research stations dot the landscape, operated by countries from the US, like McMurdo Station, basically a small town, and Russia, Vostok Station, famously recording the coldest temperature on Earth, to China, Argentina, Chile, Australia, the UK, and many others. These bases support vital research into climate science, geology, astronomy. The clear, dry air is perfect for telescopes, biology, and more. Life at these stations is challenging, extreme cold, months of darkness, isolation, requiring incredible logistics and hardy personnel. Think icebreakers carving paths through sea ice, specialized aircraft landing on skiways, and supplies planned years in advance. However, the peaceful facade isn't without underlying tensions. Several nations maintain historic territorial claims, though frozen by the treaty, and there's always speculation about future access to potential resources. While currently prohibited, mining and resource extraction could become a point of contention if the ice retreats significantly or the treaty framework weakens. Think oil, gas, minerals. Their confirmed extent is uncertain, but the potential is there. Furthermore, some nations are expanding their presence and capabilities in Antarctica, leading to questions about their long-term strategic intentions. Are they positioning themselves for a future where the rules might change? Historical whispers also add to the intrigue, like the aforementioned Nazi expedition or persistent rumors about secret military installations, though again concrete evidence is lacking. The reality is more nuanced, a continent governed by international agreement, yet still reflecting global power dynamics and holding potential future flashpoints, particularly as climate change alters its physical and strategic landscape. It's a delicate balance between cooperation and underlying national interests, played out on the coldest stage on Earth. Beyond the human drama and the climate crisis, Antarctica itself is just weird. What bizarre natural phenomena make this place unlike anywhere else on Earth? Antarctica isn't just vast and cold. It's genuinely strange, a place where nature operates under rules rarely seen elsewhere. Some of the phenomena here sound like they belong on another planet. Take bloodfalls, for example. Imagine a glacier bleeding a deep red substance onto the pristine white ice of the Taylor Glacier. It looks incredibly macabre, like something from a horror film. The reality is less gruesome but equally fascinating. The red color comes from salt water trapped beneath the glacier, rich in iron oxide, rust. When this brine occasionally seeps out through fissures, the iron oxidizes on contact with air, creating the striking blood-red stain. It's a natural chemical reaction, but visually, it's unsettling. Then there are the McMurdo Dry Valleys. These are among the most extreme deserts on Earth, receiving virtually no precipitation. Paradoxically, they are largely ice-free, kept dry by incredibly fierce katabatic winds, dense cold air pulled downhill by gravity, reaching hurricane force and scouring away any snow or ice. The landscape looks remarkably like Mars, so much so that NASA uses it as an analog environment to test equipment and theories for planetary exploration. Life here clings on in microscopic forms hidden within rocks or near the few glacial melt streams. The sheer extremity of the environment creates other oddities. The intense cold can do strange things to air and light. Optical phenomena like sundogs, bright spots flanking the sun, halos, and complex atmospheric mirages are common, sometimes making distant objects appear distorted, inverted, or floating in the air. The dryness and cold also preserve things incredibly well, not just scientific samples but also historic huts left by early explorers like Scott and Shackleton, appearing almost as if they were abandoned just yesterday. And we can't forget the psychological impact, the complete isolation, the months of perpetual darkness during winter or perpetual daylight during summer, the sensory deprivation of the vast white landscape, and the constant biting cold. It all takes a toll on the researchers and support staff who live and work there. It's an environment that pushes human endurance to its absolute limit, physically and mentally. Antarctica's weirdness isn't just a curiosity, it's a fundamental part of its character, a testament to the power of extreme natural forces. So we've looked at ancient myths, real discoveries, a looming climate threat, and the sheer strangeness of the place. How does all this circle back to Joe Rogan and that terrifying announcement? Let's be clear, despite the dramatic title often associated with these discussions online, Joe Rogan likely hasn't made a single official announcement unveiling some groundbreaking, previously unknown scientific fact about Antarctica confirmed by the mainstream scientific community. He's not a polar researcher presenting new data at a conference. What does happen frequently is that his platform, the Joe Rogan Experience, hosts long-form conversations that delve into the many facets of Antarctica, the known, the unknown, the speculative, and the genuinely concerning. Think about the guests and topics often featured: proponents of alternative history discussing lost civilizations or ancient maps, commentators talking about potential government secrets or unexplained aerial phenomena sometimes reported near sensitive areas, scientists explaining the realities of climate change and the potential for catastrophic ice melt, explorers recounting the sheer difficulty and danger of operating in such an extreme environment. The terrifying truth, then, isn't necessarily one specific secret revealed by Rogan himself. Instead, it emerges from the amalgamation of these different threads within the conversations he facilitates. For some listeners, the terrifying part might be the speculative ideas about hidden bases or non-human intelligence tapping into conspiratorial fears. For others, listening to a climate scientist detail the potential collapse of the Thwaites Glacier and the resulting sea level rise is profoundly existentially terrifying and based entirely on real science. Others might find the idea of ecosystems locked under miles of ice for millions of years, potentially harboring unknown life forms, both fascinating and slightly unsettling in its alienness. Rogan's role is primarily as a host and amplifier. His open-minded, questioning style allows diverse, sometimes contradictory perspectives to be aired. He provides a massive stage where scientific facts about climate change can sit alongside discussions of the Piri Reis map or theories about Operation High Jump. This blending of established science, historical mystery, fringe speculation, and genuine environmental threat, all focused on this enigmatic continent and broadcast to millions, creates the perception of a terrifying truth being discussed or even revealed. It's the cumulative effect of these varied Antarctic narratives converging on one highly popular platform. The announcement is less a single event and more the ongoing conversation itself.